Unless it's fraud, by the legal definition of fraud or material misrepresentation is the word that we use in the industry. I don't care if you got $1 deductibles and it's gold plated and you got $500,000 limits, it doesn't matter. You never know when you're going to get that call, 5 minutes before you leave from an agent who really needs you to step up and go to bat for them. To me, the golden rule is to treat others the way that they want to be treated. If you're making a 5% profit, you're in good shape. And the question is asked, well, if you have all driverless vehicles, what do we need insurance for? Oh, this is going to be an hour.
Yep.
I'm going to be searching everywhere.
Welcome to the Keyconceptspodcast. When you hear the word insurance, what comes to mind? Well, today we're joined by our special guest, Joshua Henloff, and we're going to uncover the insurance underwriting industry where decisions are made quietly but can have a massive impact on people's lives. So Josh, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. What is an insurance underwriter? People normally aren't super familiar with underwriting, but basically the underwriting process is you're trying to make sure that the information that you're receiving on an application for insurance is accurate, that we're getting the proper rate for the risk, and that we don't have any exposures that we can't see on paper. So it's just basically making sure that everything is accurate and up to date, and that we are properly evaluating the exposure that the policy presents.
So can you kind of explain the difference from what an insurance agent does and what an underwriter does?
Agent is basically the sales arm of the company. So there are multiple different kinds of agents. Some agents only write for one insurance company, and they're called captive agents. And then other agents, independent agents, can write for a variety of different carriers. So it's their job to meet with a customer, and they ask you a bunch of questions. They put that information on an application, and then they send that application to us. We take a look at that application, and it's our job to make sure if what the applicant is saying, if they've included all of the information on the application. And most policies just go straight through, like we don't even have to look at it. But there are some policies that kick out for specific reasons, and it's our job to take a look at those special cases and make a judgment about what price we're going to charge for that, and if we can even write that insurance. When I say exposure, it's just something that could happen in a risk analysis situation. This is the risk analysis thinking is, we have factors out there that we can't see, that you can't predict. You can't predict the drunk driver who's going to hit you and run, right? Like that's not something that you can predict. But if you know that there are risk factors within a household, exposures within a household, it's your job as the underwriter to address all of those. So like the example I gave, the person comes in, they don't exclude their son or daughter. When the son or daughter gets their license, they're driving one of the policy vehicles. And as I'm sure you can figure out, the rate for a young driver is vastly higher than those for someone like you or me who have got a couple of decades of license experience under them. The classic example for what an underwriter does, you get an application that comes in, it has one driver, unemployed, let's say middle-aged man, and he's got 4 trucks on the policy. Some of those trucks have, financing on them. And you're thinking to yourself, what is a guy living alone that has 4 trucks, some of them with loans? How is this all working? This doesn't make sense. So, you go to publicly available information sources. You try to look up and see if this person has some kind of contractor's license, let's say, just due to the factors of the risk. You pull it up. You can see that he does have a contractor's license. You can see that he does have a workers' comp policy. And you can quickly start putting together that this guy is using his vehicles for the business.
What about ATVs? Motorcycles. Now there's like electric scooters and e-bikes. Are those covered as part of the car insurance policies?
Something like an e-scooter, something like an ATV. These are vehicles that are used on the sidewalk or off-road. These are toys, essentially. And those will generally be covered under your homeowner's policy. You have special boat insurance, but you can also insure boats elsewhere. So when you're talking about a personal auto policy, where we draw the line is it registered and street legal in California? Nobody really grows up wanting to be an insurance underwriter. Not that there's anything wrong with being an insurance underwriter, but we all want to be, policemen or, football stars or, like something a little bit more glamorous than this. A lot of people just end up falling into insurance and falling in love with it. The thing that keeps me in the industry is the people. The insurance is good. It's fascinating. Like the way that the stuff on the paper and the stuff in real life kind of come together. Really, to me, the insurance industry is so full of wonderful, fantastic people that have big hearts, and I just fell in love with it. Our training requirements are vast. It can take over 2 years to train an underwriter to be fully capable to where you can trust them to make decisions on their own. The amount of skill that it takes to do the job and the amount of stress that you're under, especially, underwriting is stressful, but when you're going over to the claims side, you're having to deal with insureds and customers who you're trying to keep happy, who just suffered a loss, who just got into an accident. When you have to tell them, I'm sorry, but your policy doesn't cover this and you're going to have to deal with this yourself. Nobody wants to have that conversation. The insured doesn't want to. We don't want to. It's just the nature of the business. So there are a lot of difficult aspects about being in insurance, but if you can do it, it's a very rewarding field to be in.
What is the education path for someone that wanted to become an insurance underwriter?
If I'm talking to someone who's about to go to college and they're like, should I just jump into the industry? Should I get educated? I would always recommend getting a 4-year degree before going into insurance, just because it prepares you for the process, the learning that it's going to take. I forgot probably 90% of the stuff that I learned in school. The thing that the piece of paper that I got showed me is I can do something for 4 years consistently. I can accomplish a goal that I set out to accomplish. And that's the kind of thing that we look for in insurance, because the process is long. It takes a while to develop your talent, to develop your skill. And we want to see people who have shown that already, that they can do that.
Preparing for the CPCU though, is it like the bar where you're just locked in a room studying?
I wouldn't quite say it's bar level or medical board level. I would say it's just below CPA level. To me, it was the equivalent of your specialty classes in your undergrad. So your last 2 years of college. That's about where I pegged the difficulty at. You do have to study. You do have to be on top of it. You do take proctored exams, which means that you go to a room and you're sitting down, or at least that's what it was when I was doing it. Now I've been a CPCU for almost 15 years now. So I'm sure that they have different testing mechanisms than they did when I was there. But I would run down to the testing center, take my test, have someone looking over my shoulder, making sure I didn't have any extra materials, and then hopefully pass.
Is there anything once you got into the industry that education could not have prepared you for?
You can have book knowledge and you can have a basis of understanding of what the industry looks like and what risk looks like. But it's one thing to read it out of a textbook, and it's another thing to see it on the ground. But to me, it comes down to judgment. Are you making the right choice? And I think that's not just an insurance thing. You had mentioned the bar. An attorney has to exercise a ton of judgment. You still have to be able to be reasonable and ration out, your arguments and to make it all make sense. And that's the skill that's necessary to be an underwriter, because you can get all the education you want, but if you can't properly assess a risk, or that's not something that's appealing to you, you're not going to make it in this industry.
How does an underwriter actually make money?
And we're generally employees. While we do mostly have incentive programs and bonuses, these are usually corporate wide. So it's not just the underwriting team that's getting these. We don't have individual bonuses for certain things. It's just we have a set of metrics. If we achieve all of those metrics, we're much more likely to get a better raise. Or, if we achieve those metrics and everybody else does, then our company profits well and we get a much larger bonus. But the insurance industry, and one of the reasons that I've stayed in the insurance industry, is the stability. The job security is amazing when your product is mandated by the state of California to possess. Everybody who drives a car has to have auto insurance. If you're 50-50 on a risk, you give it to the insured. We're audited on the files that we work to make sure that we made the right decision, to make sure that we followed the proper protocol. When it comes down to judgment calls that are 50-50, they'll usually give that to us as well in the sense of, this one could have gone either way. We're not going to give them an error for this because we could have done it that way and it would have been fine too. When I look at it, when I'm down to a 50-50, it's my job to look for more. It's my job to make that a 51-49 or a 49-51 so that we can make a judgment with confidence. But when we can't do that, we just let it go and let it happen.
I like that approach. That way you're not really guessing. You're just a little bit more confident one way or the other.
The thing that distinguishes insurance companies from each other is the way that they rate policies. And those are highly regulated. So we submit what's called a filing to the California Department of Insurance. They take a look at this filing and they either approve it or send it back to us. In California, you have 3 primary rating factors. Those factors are driving record, annual mileage, and license experience. We all have to assign a number to those, like at what point is, how much more expensive is 9,000 annual miles than 8,000 annual miles? How much more expensive is a speeding ticket on top of just a base rate? And it's those numbers, our proprietary soup of rating factors, that are the difference between us and another insurance company.
Most people never actually meet their underwriter. So do you ever have to contact the customer? Do you ever interact with them?
If we had to take calls from all of our insureds about everything that they wanted to talk about their policy, we'd never get any underwriting done. We just don't have that kind of staff. Our job is to look at the policies and assess the risk, not to explain that to the insured. And while I would love to have a conversation with every insured about why we write a risk the way that we do, why their insurance is going up, we just don't have the capacity to do that. That's our agents' jobs. I think personally their jobs are much harder than ours. I only write one line. An agent can write and be responsible for many, many lines of coverage. They have to know multiple carriers and the rules for multiple carriers, the exclusions and the different policy jackets. And so I always have a lot of respect to the agents to have to accumulate and keep on top of all that information.
What is the things that people often overlook that could raise their insurance premiums?
It matters how they use their cars and how much they use their cars. Often this will include asking what a person's job is. And then once we ask what their job is, we ask, well, how do you use your vehicle within that job? Do you work from home? Are you driving to different job sites? That's the information that we use to assess how much they're driving every year. The other thing that it's being used to assess is whether or not our personal auto policy is appropriate for their usage. So again, like the guy with the 4 trucks, it's not just that we know how far he's driving those trucks every day and how much annual mileage he's accumulating. It's figuring out if this is even the right policy to cover him. So I think that that's probably the thing that insureds wouldn't know affects their policy so much.
Is there any of those checks that can validate beyond just a letter that's being sent back in to confirm that the customer is actually honest?
There are multiple different information sources that we can use to acquire that. Most of the time, we trust our insureds. Some of the programs that are offered within the insurance industry automatically pull that information from other sources that report to a central database so that you don't even have to send us the letter anymore. Like we can just pull it automatically and adjust at renewal. But most of the time we're asking people to confirm. And if we're seeing something like we've got a real estate agent that has 20 different listings and he's saying, I got 3,000 miles because every time they send me a thing, I just add 3,000 miles and da-da-da-da-da. So we can at that point ask for them, can we get a photo of your odometer reading? In the situation that you're talking about with the annual mileage, and even drilling down a little bit more on what it is that we can do when we have an insured who's reporting erroneous information, we have ways in which we can cancel the policy if they don't if they don't comply with what we're asking for. There are certain pieces of information, of course, all regulated by the state, that we're allowed to ask for. And if we don't get it, we can cancel the policy.
What's the legit way that people can get discounts that may not be like so common?
The best discount that you can usually get is going to be the good driver discount, the California good driver discount. And this allows an additional 20% discount if you haven't had more than 1 point in the last 3 years. So the best thing that you can do is to be a good driver. Don't get tickets, don't get accidents. That's going to be the number one way to do that. Insurance company make a big deal out of bundling your policies together. When you start stacking those multi-policy discounts together, that can save you a substantial amount of money. We're not just begging you to do it on the commercials because we want it. It's because it will provide you substantial savings on your policies. The state requires us to disclose all of our discounts to our insureds. Whether or not you qualify for those discounts is between you and your agent.
What about any government subsidies?
I learned about this a long time ago, so excuse me if I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but there is a program in California that's legally mandated called assigned risk. And so this is for people who normally cannot obtain insurance because, let's say, their driving record is too bad or they can't afford it. So they can go into this assigned risk program. They can apply for it. Not too many people qualify for the assigned risk program, but it is something that's out there. The main way that government subsidizes insurance, however, is by being the insurer of last resort. If you're in, let's say, Placerville, you're going to have a real hard time getting homeowners insurance. The fire risk in the foothills of California is legendarily high, much like the hurricane risk in Florida. These are things that are recurring catastrophic events that happen and that we can predict to a certain degree. Any for-profit insurance company is going to look at a risk like a house in Placerville and be like, I don't know about all this, I can't make money on this risk because it's fine this year and it might be fine next year and we could be making a profit. But in year 3, if we have that catastrophic Palisades fire, we're losing our shirt on this kind of stuff.
How are car insurance companies surviving through all this?
At the end of the day, any cost that we incur, the insured incurs. And a lot of people will say, oh, these guys are just trying to make their margins. These guys are just trying to get one over on us and make money hand over fist. And that's not the case. We have a lot of, like you said, we have a lot of exposure. We have a lot of things that can go wrong. If something catastrophic does happen like that, like the Palisades fire, insurance companies rely on what's called reinsurance. So it's insurance for insurance companies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What are the misconceptions about the car insurance industry and underwriters that people believe that are true that are not true?
Yeah, a lot of people think that we're just out to get them, that we're providing a useless product. And for someone that pays premiums and never incurs a loss, I can understand why they would think that. You never value your insurance policy until you're actually using it, until your house is on fire, until you get into an accident. That's when you see the value of the insurance, because instead of paying for your $27,000 total loss vehicle, you just pay your $500 deductible and we take care of it. And so one of the big misconceptions is that, we're just raking it in and making money hand over fist.
Have you ever been in a situation where the data said, I should write this policy based on the data, but your gut was telling you, don't do it. There's something wrong here.
Our job as underwriters is to put ourselves in the shoes of our customers and to basically paint a picture of the life that they're living so that we can properly understand, how to assess their risk, how to assess their exposures. That's the primary way in which we do that, by just painting the picture so that it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, to keep digging and keep digging and keep digging until you figure it out.
What about like all these AI tools? How is that impacting your industry at all?
Sometimes it helps me as an underwriter. I have a million different procedures. I have a ton of different policies. And so what I use AI for is to help me find that information, because if I'm looking for a specific case that I've relied on before and that I know this answer, I know we've been through this situation before, and I don't know where it is. So I can ask the AI, hey, in this situation, what have I done before? And the AI will go through my email, it'll go through my chat logs, it'll go through the procedures, it'll go through all the defects, and it'll come back with, oh, this is what you did the last time based on this email. I click on the email, I verify it knows what it's talking about, and then we can make a decision based on that.
Eventually, we're probably going to go to a place where there is no one behind the wheel. It's just the autonomous vehicle. So how is that going to impact underwriting when, even if this is a 16-year-old, they're not behind the wheel?
The way that it's usually done now is that the driver of the vehicle is the driver of the vehicle. They are responsible for the operation of the vehicle to make sure that the machine is following the rules of the road, even if it's the machine that's driving. Anytime that you operate one of these autonomous vehicles and you click it into that mode, or even you start up the vehicle, I know I have it in mine, and it only has like automatic braking and like lane correction. It tells you, hey, you're responsible for the operation of this vehicle regardless of whether the machine is driving or whether you are driving. You take that responsibility onto yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even if there is full self-driving, they can always turn it off. So there's always that extra risk there.
And the question is asked, well, if you have all driverless vehicles, what do we need insurance for? And to that, I respond, well, you're right, because machines never make mistakes. So
Sure,
I think that auto insurance is going to be around for a long time.
One bug and every car is hitting the guardrails.
Exactly.
It's going to be crazy.
Or something gets hacked, our network gets hacked, and we're all running into each other. Yeah, good stuff.
Oh man, the world of cybersecurity is just going to get more and more crazy with all that hacking that's going to be going on.
Absolutely.
Do you ever get decision fatigue? And how do you mitigate for that?
After a while of sitting and looking at hard files for 7 hours out of the day, on hour 8, you're right, I'm like losing it. My coffee has long since left me. Every 2 hours, I'm out by the river. I go and I take a walk. I work out in the morning. I work out after work is over. It's my responsibility as a professional to make sure that I put myself in a position to be able to make those judgment calls all day, because you never know when you're going to get that call, 5 minutes before you leave from an agent who really needs you to step up and go to bat for them.
Is there different nuances of like travel and coverage?
When I go and rent a car, I know my policy jacket and I know what's covered and I know what's not covered. So if someone tries to come up to me and say, hey, you don't have that coverage, we need you to we're mandating you to buy coverage, I tell them no. Here's my policy, here's my declarations page. I have non-owned coverage. And, if you're not going to rent me a car without paying some exorbitant sum for supplemental insurance, I'm going to go down the way and rent from that guy, because I don't have to do that. Knowing your insurance policy is incredibly important.
If more people want to find out about underwriting insurance, the education, the schooling, how to get a job, is there any resources where people can start pre-training to get into that field if they're interested in it?
Yeah, I would always recommend the institutes, the people who chartered my professional designation. There are a lot of resources on the industry within their website. You can always go to that Sac State program. They have a lot of fantastic educational resources. If you just want to know more about how your insurance policy works from a government standpoint, you can go to the DOI website, and there are a lot of resources there. They also have jobs there for people who want to get into the insurance industry, but maybe they feel more comfortable with a government job, or they currently have a government job. They can transfer over to DOI from whatever department that they're in now.
What do you think would be that quality that someone would need to really be successful in underwriting?
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to be able to look at a risk and not just be the book tells me to do this. You have to look at every risk as as an independent risk. Everybody's story is different. That's how we treat it as underwriters. We treat each story as a different story. You have to be able to act impartially. So if I'm writing my buddy's policy, it's just another policy. I don't do anybody any favors. I don't do anything unfairly to make sure that people get an advantage. That's what underwriting is all about, treating everybody fairly.
Yeah. So if someone's a critical thinker, this might be right up their alley.
Absolutely. I constantly hear, the golden rule is to treat others how you want to be treated. To me, the golden rule is to treat others the way that they want to be treated, because at the end of the day, not everybody wants to get treated like I do. Everybody has the thing that they like. And the more that you treat the people the way that they're comfortable with and the way that they feel they deserve to be treated, the better results you're going to get from them, the more that they're going to listen to you, the more that they're going to trust you, because you clearly care about them as people and they're not just employee 246.
Josh, thank you so much for taking us behind the scenes, giving us the story of underwriting, the thing that most people don't know exists, that happens behind the scenes, and how much work and analytics actually goes into it, and how to right size those jobs, the benefits, the discounts, and basically how the whole industry works. So thank you so much for your time. It was super interesting, and I'm looking forward to reviewing my insurance policy.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you guys for joining this episode of the Keyconcepts podcast. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care.